We're all excited to get started. We are going to be exploring the effects that COVID-19 has had on kitchen design and on the use of surfaces in the home in particular. My name is Kimberley Williamson. I'm Vice President at Flying Camel, an agency that specializes in working with brands in the home design space. A note before we jump in. We're hoping to have time to answer some questions at the end. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask one of our panelists, please post it in the Q&A function toward the bottom of your screen and we'll do our best to get to it. I'd like to give a special shout out to sponsors today, Andrew Pearson Glass and Charleston Forge, for hosting this digital panel series. Both of these companies are based in North Carolina and are proudly made in America. Okay, let's jump right in. Welcome to the panel today, Vanessa DeLeon, Vanessa DeLeon Associates, John McClain Design, and Lauren Clement of Lauren Nicole Designs. It's wonderful to have you all here. Vanessa, let's start with you. Can you give the folks at home an introduction, and for those who aren't familiar, a brief description of your work?
Sure, thank you for having me. My name is Vanessa DeLeon, interior designer, lifestyle expert based out of New York City. I specialize in high-end residential, commercial, and hospitality interiors.
Awesome, thanks Vanessa. I actually saw you speak on a panel we organized at the KBIS Next Stage this past January in Las Vegas. It seems like 100 years ago now.
It does.
John, on to you. Thanks for meeting us on the panel today. I know there's a lot of people out there who are interested in your perspective. Can you give us a brief introduction and share some of your experience and maybe a little bit about what it's been like for you over the last 5 or so months?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is so good, such a relevant topic, and I think everybody, homeowner, designer, we can all benefit from this. But yeah, I'm John McClain. I have an office, design office here in Los Angeles and also one in Florida. So I'm kind of bi-coastal in that aspect. Our design style is a bit like mid-century and Art Deco and Hollywood Regency rolled up into a ball, kind of into one design, and that's how I would describe our style. But things have been crazy, but things have been good. You know, we've been thankfully really busy, and we're obviously thankful for all of our clients who have decided to change their home during this time. So we welcome all of that. But overall, you know, health of the world aside, things are pretty good.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. And it's so true. The design, build, remodel businesses have really run the gamut in terms of impact with the virus. And I'm really excited to explore that more with you today. Next, let's hear from Lauren Clement. Lauren, we're thrilled that you could be with us today. Please introduce yourself and give the audience an idea of what you've been up to lately.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm Lauren Clement, interior designer, Lauren Nicole Designs, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work on projects all over the United States. But I specialize in residential, high-end residential, a lot of kitchen and bath renovations, whole home updates, and new custom builds. And Charlotte is definitely seeing, yes, the effects of COVID, of course, from the health standpoint, but my business, and I do believe the home and design business in Charlotte is seeing a steady business, potentially increases in some people's businesses. I know I've been so fortunate to have people who are taking a look at the inside of their home. A lot of kitchen and bath renovation work happening right now, and really focusing on how their home is functioning for themselves, their families, what makes sense, what doesn't, just really taking a look inside. And those who are able to make the changes right now are moving forward.
Very, very cool. Wonderful to have you all here. We've been talking with folks from all over the industry since the pandemic started, and it seems that we've been uniquely impacted, you know, and no two experiences have been the same. One thing we're hearing again and again from designers, though, is that new product discovery and innovations are becoming difficult to come across. Just the whole conduit for discovery has been disrupted. And that leads me to my first question. Lauren, I'm going to shoot this one to you. I know you're a mom of 2, so I can imagine the importance of durability and keeping your home clean and safe for your family. What are some of your favorite go-to materials?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question. And for sure, you know, we're always, again, with having these kids home, and really we've been home for so long, longer than any of us have ever imagined and ever really been before. And so I've spent a lot more time in my kitchen than ever before. And, you know, we take a look at what the surfaces are. So I actually inherited a marble countertop in our kitchen. We did not build our house, it was custom built, but I am learning all the reasons why I've always told clients no marble in your kitchen who do that. And I'm, you know, walking proof of that. We actually, and I'll just give a quick little anecdote. My daughters had one of these online learning situations was stick a piece of celery in a cup with water and blue food coloring. Well, you know, that is not friendly to marble if that's going to spill. And it did. And I have learned how difficult that is to deal with. Therefore, I do recommend other products. Glass surfaces are amazing because they take any type of cleaner. So if you want to mix in some Clorox to really make sure, you know, you can mix up a nice little diluted Clorox solution, that will be perfectly acceptable to a glass countertop. And that may not be your first choice, what your first go-to, what your mind goes to, because you always think marble, granite, quartz. Well, this is really an opportunity to explore glass. It really can be up a backsplash on a countertop and is so user-friendly. Quartz, of course, is another good option that we're seeing out there in the world, but those two would be certainly my go-to for ease, cleanability, cooking. You know, we think about the things that we want to be long-term lasting and very durable, and those would be my go-to for surfaces.
That makes a lot of sense, and I love what you said there. So with glass and quartz, how are you coaching your clients through cleaning these materials now with this new environment that we're in?
Exactly. So again, we can definitely use a little bit of that Clorox bleach mix. You can always do a light just soap and water mix too for kind of like your everyday. Getting into sort of that, especially today, depending on who is in and out of your house at this point, you know, wanting to make sure you have that more, the stronger clean, and those surfaces can handle that. If you do have anything that's more of a natural stone product, you certainly cannot use that. Otherwise, it takes that the surface right off, and that protectant, and really gets you down to the natural stone product, which leaves you more susceptible to staining and etching. So you definitely have to stay away from those harsher chemical products. So that's why I love that glass and quartz, to just use a mild soap and water, get it into the bleach for that Clorox, for that every, you know, the harder clean. But that really just makes it nice and user-friendly, that you don't have to worry for that kitchen
That's
functionality.
awesome.
And
you shared there. I think I like your point about using surfaces that are not only easily cleaned, but also working with materials that are more inherently less porous and antimicrobial in nature. It just feels like the right tool for the job right now. Vanessa,
Absolutely.
do you have something that you want to add on to that?
Well, I know when people hear of glass, they're like, oh, so it's just clear, but glass comes in multiple colors and different ranges of material and actual texture. So there's endless possibilities there. So I agree with Lauren as far as glass and quartz is concerned. I think marble's probably the scariest, especially in today's time. You want things that are non-porous. And I think everybody's being cognizant of cleaning surfaces a little bit more frequently than they used to, especially with the harder chemicals like Clorox. I sort of like the organic approach. I have a 2-year-old son, and I've been really mindful of kind of keeping the smells less potent in the home. Mm-hmm. So I love to use vinegar mixed in, diluted with water. But I do have a weekly clean, and that's when also my housekeeper comes in, and we do use a harder surface when my son's in the playroom. So I think the quartz and the glass and those elements are great, to Lauren's point. But there's many different colorways and texture, so you don't have to be fearful of, oh, it's just plain glass on my surface. So there's endless possibilities.
That up, definitely. I mean, there's something to be said about the sort of majesty that using a marble surface, for example, can bring. But now we have these other materials like glass, like quartz, that while it may not be exact, there's a lot of different ways that we can use those to get a similar look and feel without the dangerous sort of staining and product sort of durability implications of using an actual natural stone. So that's really cool. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
John, since you mentioned that your business is on track for a really strong year, I think you're the best person to take the lead on this next question. What are you using a lot of? Has COVID-19 impacted your choice of design materials for projects?
You know, I think clients don't know what they don't know. They kind of envision this outcome of functionality and beauty, and then I really think it's up to us to get that path to them. So they tell us, I want a sofa that's durable. I want my kitchen to be able to be, hosed down. I want, my bathroom to be super, super easy to clean. So it's up to us to bring that. And I think that's what we have changed our mindset in doing, is keeping COVID in mind. We've always kept durability in mind. Cleanability is now on the forefront. Like, for instance, something that we're doing a lot of these days is we're actually tiling, and like it's a bathroom or a powder room that's not such a large size. We are tiling every single wall in that powder room with tile, so that it's all non-porous surfaces. It could be a porcelain, obviously porcelain is antimicrobial as well. So we're really thinking about how they use the space. And since they're in their home so much, it's almost like every single corner of your house has to be addressed and has to have functionality and beauty and durability. So to me, it's a big ask, but it's also something that I love to do because I love a good challenge. And I think that, the market's so innovative these days with large format porcelain, for instance, can be used for kitchen countertops now, right? Or it can be a large piece of porcelain to mimic a bookend marble in your bathroom. So there's so many surfaces that we have to constantly keep monitoring, I think, to make it accessible to our clients. And I like to bring new things to clients that they've never seen before. And a lot of those things are falling in with the COVID era, where we are keeping cleanability and basically, if you have a family of 5, you want something to wipe down. If you spill your wine because you're helping your kid with your homework on the sofa, you need that to beat up and to be able to clean off. And I think that we're going in that direction of maybe the hospitality industry is going to see more of an influx of products into the home industry. I think we're going to see some things that were meant to be used in a hospital environment, for instance. I think we're going to see those pieces of fabrics and those things also make their way into the residential design field. That's how I predict it's going to change what we do.
That's really cool. And actually, you mentioned something in an email last week I was hoping that you could expand on, because I think what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that you're taking the role of coaching your clients and introducing them to products that they may not have known were out there that can help address health and wellness aspects. So I think people probably choose to work with you because they're a fan of the aesthetic that you bring, but they don't necessarily have those sort of side topics at the top of their mind. So at what point in the process do you bring up those materials? How do you go about putting those in front of your clients? And maybe, because you did say that, their ears perk up when they say that they can have the best of both worlds, that they can have the aesthetic that they want with products that are also going to support their lifestyle. What does that look like as part of your business?
Well, we do a really, really, really thorough, thank God, onboarding process with our clients. So we're asking every single questions that they've never even thought about. Why are you asking me this question? So we'll ask those questions and we dive deep. We really dive deep into how they live. Do you sit on the sofa and do your homework with your kid? Do you like to sit at the island in the kitchen? Does your son make a mess in the bathroom when he gets ready in the morning? All these weird questions that they almost seem probably a little too personal. We push and we get in there. And I think that's what allows us to really know how they use their house. And it's not just about the beauty of it. I mean, it is, but it's also about how it works. I can have the most beautifully designed kitchen or the most beautiful bathroom. And if to Lauren's comment earlier, if the marble stains, then I haven't done my job, because this client did not want that marble to stain or that countertop to stain. And so for me, it comes to the point of knowing what the end goal is, how does it function for them, what kind of style and aesthetics do they want, and then I go into my repertoire of CEUs and site visits to houses, and used to be showroom visits. We can't do those too much anymore, but I go into my brain, and all my designers do as well. And we pull out the things that we think would be innovative for them to meet the needs that they have. I know that kind of sounds very general, but it's really the way that we operate, and I think design is 50% knowing what to do and 50% knowing where to find it to do it. And that's what we try to work on is the finding of stuff.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. And we know that you got to go project by project and client by client, right? So, I mean, thank you for sharing your process with us. I think that sounds like a really great approach. Lauren, are you coaching your clients on the health and wellness angle and different products that may impact their design and their lifestyle overall?
Absolutely. And to John's point, they don't know what they don't know. And the worst thing is if you're all finished and complete a renovation or a new space, and they say, oh, I wish I would have thought about that. And that's our job, is to solve that challenge for that particular space before they even know that it was a hurdle to overcome. And maybe that is, those examples that John gave. It's, your daughter is learning to apply makeup in the bathroom, and there's a mess of spilled powder, those things that nobody thinks about, just the daily function. Somebody could think that they want a beautiful river rock shower pan. Well, no, you really might not, because that's really difficult to clean, but they're not even thinking about the cleaning, the maintenance. What does that mean on a daily lifestyle? And so I really do find it's my job to make sure, and not in a negative way, but just to ask those questions ahead of time to almost challenge some of the selections, because yes, while it could be absolutely beautiful in a photograph or in their minds, this is what I have to have, let's apply that to your daily life now and then a couple years down the road, and make sure that we're thinking through all those solutions. Of course, nobody could have predicted COVID, but now we're thinking, asking much different questions. People are spending so much more time in their homes. So we're just trying to get ahead of what some of those challenges could be.
That makes
And I think too, by the way, to piggyback on that, I think that comes with a lot of experience. So early on in my career, would I have stopped a client and said, no, you're not right. That's not the way to do that. We're a little more apprehensive, I think, early on in our design careers to step in and suggest things that maybe they haven't thought of, or maybe they didn't see on television. Maybe it's a product they don't even know about. But now I find 9 times out of 10, if I do recommend something for a purpose that's specific for their home, they love it and they embrace it, I think. So that's something too that I think just we have to adapt to, and really just try to always recommend the best thing for them, no matter what their perception of design is.
Absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. Vanessa, I want to turn back to you for a second. I'm familiar with your work, and I'm a huge fan of the personal renovation project that you completed last year. Do you have any thoughts, or what can you share with us about how that all ties into the luxury versus standard materials conversation?
Well, for me, luxury is not necessarily something that's very expensive. Luxury for me is something that's unique for the individual who's implementing the projects. So I'll give you an example. We have a foyer in our personal entrance of our home that we completed, and we found a geode when we were in Colorado, and we thought of making this geode part of the home, part of the structure of the house. Unbeknownst to us, the amount of weight that this geode weighed, we had to add a support system in the foundation of the house to support this in a wall, because I wanted to make it like a wall installation. And that's just a case in point of something that was found, looks luxurious, could be done with any sort of material, whether it's a glass material or a real geocrystal material, backlit, adding LED lights that last forever with an access panel behind the wall, and doing the structure so when you walk in, you're presented with a glue that's beautiful. And this could be done very similar to etching of glass, or doing some kind of really unique formation, or something that, an emblem that maybe resonates with your family, or whether it's initials, whatever, what have you. For us, it was that geode, and it was very powerful for us. And that was just a case in point of something that looks super luxurious when you walk into the home, and it just creates an amazing presence. So I think it's a matter of taking those things that mean something to you and elevating it. I know for us, in the kitchen, for example, we loved the luxury of the La Cruneau stove and the luxury of a true refrigerator. 2 very powerful pieces in the home, but obviously probably the most expensive thing in the home. But we were able to work around it in such a way that everything else wasn't super costly, that the cabinets were, MDF interiors and painted door fronts and things that were going to be more economical, but we really splurged on the things for us that were meaningful for us. So I think that's how you have to kind of treat every home. And then again, luxury is really subjective. I think it's all about how you place things and how they interact with one another, and how it looks juxtaposed to other things that may not be as expensive, but would look very well thought out, expensive, and very luxurious once everything's put together. And I think the trick is that designers know how to do that. If a homeowner looks at Pinterest or Houzz or what have you, or just inspiration, they can love and have excellent taste, but it's the execution and it's a procurement of those pieces that we as designers are educated, daily and go to these trade shows or go to these webinars or things like of this nature, that we teach ourselves every day new tricks and new products to implement in these sort of solutions that make it look picture ready.
Right. And I think I have to say that I agree 100%. I think, when we're talking about the difference between a luxury product and a standard product, it comes down to the personality of your client and definitely some customization and making sure that you're building something and putting something together that has your client sensibility at the front and center, I should say.
Yep.
And I also think we're entering an era where our expectations for the materials we're sourcing needs to be raised, because yes, aesthetics and customization are always going to be very, very key. But I think, as much as we can ask ourselves questions like, how many times can this be scrubbed and sterilized before it starts to show wear? How long until this starts to look tired? That kind of thing, I think, is going to become even more important.
Absolutely.
John,
Preach,
I know
sister, preach. You're right.
John, I know you worked with several celebrity clients. Are you able to share some custom products that you sourced for a particular product?
Well, I mean, we do, honestly, probably about half of what our designs are custom. And I love that, because your imagination is your limit, right? You're only limited as far as you go there. And so we have clients who are like, I really want to do, this changing room in my home that feels like I'm in a store, and it's my private closet, for instance. So, they're like, I don't think that can be done. And we're like, yes, anything can be done. We can do anything you want. So yeah, so we do a lot of custom things, such as custom furniture, of course, and a lot of cool things in kitchens we do, such as the interiors of cabinetries are really important now for clients. I think how we're all spending so much time in our kitchen. So do I have the spice rack inside there that I need? Do I have a lift for my mixer? All these little things that probably we really didn't think about in the past, we bring into the designs now, because we are spending so much time. I mean, flour was sold out during the early parts of the pandemic, so everyone was baking all the time, right? So kitchens are so important for people. So for me, yeah, it's kind of the behind the scenes things of what we do that makes it special for people, I think. And it's the things that maybe they don't even, again, think about when they're coming to us for design. Right.
And I think, that's what you get when you choose to work with a designer versus trying to cobble something together by yourself if you're on the consumer side, right? I mean, you three are very talented designers. I think the key here is that you don't need to be a celebrity with a big Hollywood budget to have access to the design options that can impact, your project, that your dream kitchen, dream bathroom, what have you. And working with a designer can have a really strong impact on a client's everyday life. Great insight there. Thanks, John. Lauren, I've been keeping my eye on your Instagram, and you've been sharing a lot about projects that are in progress already, or lately, I should say, for renovation projects that were already underway before the virus hit. How's progress been going for you?
Yes, so I have several large renovation projects that have been in the works for many months before COVID hit, which, thank goodness, those are clients who are continuing to move forward, because this has been their plan, to move out of their home, to completely renovate. These are large projects with a pretty long time frame, in order to get these done. And so we have been full steam ahead, and the progress has been fantastic. We're actually ahead of schedule on one of these, so we're very grateful for everybody who, I think it's really interesting. I think from the contractor side of things, especially in the beginning when everybody was kind of coming back out, April or so, and they said, okay, it's been a few weeks, let's really kind of push forward. And people wanted to work, I mean, there's part of that people really had to get back to work, and I'm seeing the job sites take great precaution. We are all taking precaution as we do site visits, even material selections. We are still sourcing tile and countertops and working on cabinetry designs for one renovation in particular that I'm speaking of. And I'm finding that all of our vendors are equally as busy. I mean, very, very busy, seeing lots of projects going on, which is fantastic. And I'm just so grateful that everybody has been able to push forward using the right precautions, but also able to keep business going. And I do think there are products and questions that have been asked that again, wouldn't have been asked if we had done this project a year ago. And that's kind of cool to see. You know, this one in particular, and this is a little different than a surface conversation, but it's even such things as, we're going to be home now, let's create a music kids study room. That wasn't on the plan, but now it is, because of the time being spent at home. So I think we may be doing things differently, but possibly for the better than had we done some of these projects a year ago.
That's really cool. And actually that leads me really nicely into my next question. So when we think about foot traffic and how homeowners kind of travel around their home, Vanessa, starting at the front door, what are some of the spaces that you think are ready to be shaken up, that are ready for change and innovation?
I think one room for our projects are the living rooms. You know, a lot of clients say that, I never use this room, I want to make it something. So we've been making those rooms something, whether it's a speakeasy and it's like a secret entrance, or if it's like a conversion room that becomes like a hookah bar, or it's a space that the table turns into a pool table. I feel like people are much more almost like less likely to have that formal space because it reminds them of their parents' house or something, that room that was never touched and the kids weren't allowed in. I think they really want to utilize the spaces, especially now considering all the time that's been placed at home. I think they're also more mindful of, okay, well, now there's going to be different areas that we can potentially entertain in, almost treating our home like a resort of sorts, or, you know, like hotels, like they have different areas or they have different spaces. Same goes for our space at home. So the living room is always that bonus room that becomes a nothing room. So I think we've been shaking those up. Currently, I'm working on one that's a speakeasy. It's a small little kind of like sitting parlor, if you will, and then you open up the walls that are stackable walls, but all paneled, so it looks really cool. And the stackable panels open like an accordion, and then you walk into an actual working bar. So there's water run through it. There's a humidor in there. It's like a really cool space.
You need a secret password to get in.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea, actually. So that's one space. And then another one, my client in Detroit, she's like, you know what? I never use my dining room. Let's make it like a fun room. So we might make it like a game room for the kids. And that's like one of the first rooms that you walk into. So we want to make it very cool. This client they're a young family. They're very innovative. So we're going to make that space really playful for them. And then another room that we're working on now, it's going to be quasi bar / bar top. So it's more loungy. So I think these are the spaces that, you know, these void spaces that are never really utilized are now part of the family room or part of spilling into the dining room. So I think it's going to be more of that. I think we're shaking that up a lot more. And the basement fit outs also are huge right now. People want to finish up those basements because they want other areas to get away from the kids or to get away from the husband or the wife. You know, they want those areas that they can do things in. So we're actually doing a lot of finished basements now.
That's really neat. And speaking of mixing it up, I recently read an article by a fellow called Lloyd Alter. He's a design professor at Ryerson University out of Toronto. And he shared that historically when societies have been challenged by pandemics and things like that, one of the design sort of implications of that has been the installation of hand washing stations as soon as you walk into the threshold of someone's home. Have any of your clients been asking for anything like that? Can you see a future where something like that becomes more common?
I'm sure it will be. It is in my home. So I have a little, like I said, the foyer, there's actually a ledge right underneath that geode stone. So I actually have like a sanitizer station there. I mean, it's not a permanent installation. It's a temporary fix, but I've had it since the beginning. Just now, most recently, I'm hanging out with friends again. So example, they came over yesterday and the first thing I did was pump them with the sanitizer, even though everybody's been tested and whatnot, but just, you know, precautionary things to do. So then they wash their hands when they get to the kitchen. Yeah. So it's a two-step thing to enter my house. So I haven't had a request of that yet. I also think as a nation, we're also very resilient, and we also are very forgetful. And I think this may be a thing of the past once, you know, some kind of miracle vaccine or this just goes away. And I think it will be back to business as usual. So I don't know if this sort of like, you know, foyer with a, you know, antibacterial station and a hazmat area is going to be a thing of the future, but it's something to consider. No one yet has asked me for that, but I do have a little station in my foyer.
Interesting. John, do you have anything that you want to layer on to Vanessa's comments? Are you seeing hand washing stations, or can you conceive of that being something you'd be asked for by clients?
I mean, like Vanessa, I kind of have my own setup because we're all slowly doing that social distancing at home thing again. That's where we're having people over, but we're staying apart, and it's like, you know, BYOB kind of a thing. So that's happening these days. But you know, some of the things that we're doing, I think that we'll continue on is instead of a knob on the door, we're doing a lot of levers so that they can either, you know, use their elbow, or you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. Touchless faucets in the kitchen have kind of really increased in popularity, I think, for everyone. And then, so we recommend that to clients these days if they're, you know, prone to worry about touching and contagious type things like that. So vinyl wall covering, for instance, is a great alternative that we're suggesting. Is easily wipeable. On the furniture side of stuff, we will take a wooden desk or a desk that has like a precious sort of material on the top of it, an antique, and we'll put a piece of glass on it, so that not only is it durable, but it can be wiped down. I mean, glass is obviously this antimicrobial, perfectly impenetrable surface that you can wipe down so easily. And I think it's underused a lot of times these days when we're designing, and anything that's non-porous, we're kind of pushing to the forefront of people, whether they ask for it or not. We like to recommend it because it is easily cleanable. And then we try to incorporate that with, if they have a housekeeper, we actually have a walkthrough with a housekeeper where we talk about how to clean these things and so forth. So we're super hands-on with all that part of it as well. Not just like, here's your pretty house, go and live in it. We're like, here's how you live in your house, and here is how you clean your house throughout after we leave.
No, that's so neat. I started thinking about, you know, the door opens and people toss their not sanitized keys onto a surface and then sort of travel around their home, and you start thinking about, you know, when germs are at the forefront, you start thinking about, okay, what is the path that those germs are also taking? So it's interesting to hear your perspectives on that. Before we move on, Lauren, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on that, and I'm going to back up a little bit too. What are some of the areas in the home that you think are best positioned to be innovated on?
So we all tend to come in through this garage, mudroom, friends and family entrance. And I think that's a big part of the home that, just like you're saying, whether it's keys, purses, shoes, you know, implementing some really great safety and sort of cleaning processes right there. I mean, yes, that is all your own family members. However, you guys have been out somewhere. If you ran to the grocery store, if your kids are having any type of camp or back to school, that's going to be your first place to get clean before entering your home. And I know I've been training my kids. They go straight to the sink and wash their hands. I don't care how many times we have sanitized in the car. So part of it too is training. And like Vanessa was saying, you know, we are kind of creatures of habit and we can be forgetful. So I think learning this now, especially for the kiddos, is really important going forward, even when hopefully this is all gone, just to have those really good habits. But I do think, whether that's a bowl that can be, you know, a glass, beautiful bowl that has a little liner in it that your keys go in, or, you know, other applications that can be easily wiped off and cleaned for your most traveled areas, that's going to be a big focus. And I think adding it too in the kitchen, doing a lot of kitchen renovations and updates, not just cosmetic, but more so restructuring of the space. You know, this prep kitchen, the dirty kitchen, scullery, whatever term you would like to call it, is a big win, in my opinion. It was pre-COVID we started to see this, but of course now that's a great area to keep everything, sort of your prep area, dirty in one location, especially if you have any type of personal chef coming over, if you're doing any kind of cooking in your home that way. That's that's a really great area to have a second sink, a second dishwasher, and everything can be contained there. And again, with really smart surfaces and countertops, touchless faucets in the kitchen, like John said, for sure. Those are definitely products we're recommending. But I think that part of the kitchen renovation is a nice structural feature that keeps your front part of the kitchen nice and clean and beautiful, and then you can have the workstation in the back.
Isn't that neat? Yeah.
I'll add, Kimberly,
Yeah.
just to piggyback off of Laura, and there's also, so I have a nanny that comes in every morning, and I make her take off her shoes in a certain section and put it into this little bin, and right there by the door, there's a little drawer that she has to open up, and that's where all the wipes are. So I make her actually wipe down her cart keys along with her cell phone, because my son is very inclined to touching the phone or grabbing the phone. So that's the first thing, plus the pump, and then, you know, straight to the sink, which happens to be a touchless sink, so faucet. So yeah, I think also having that drawer with all those little knickknacks that you would need to sanitize or have, you know, readily available, and just being mindful that there is a little wipe that you can, you know, wipe your keys and cell phone off, because those are the things that we always carry, place on the countertops and surfaces, and obviously that picks up the bacteria. So
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, whether it's help cleaning the house, or help watching children while you work, or tradespeople coming in for a project or something like that, we all need to have a process that we're comfortable with, so that we can have open doors, because we all need help in some way, shape, or form. So I think that that's a really good point that you made, and thank you very much for making it, Vanessa. Next, I would really like to explore the open concept spaces and all of the insight that you've brought so far. We've kind of broken it up by different areas and how you all are able to innovate. But do you think that the open concept will change now that people have a need for more privacy within their own homes? Vanessa, you mentioned basements and what have you. I'd like to hear from all of you on this one, but John, I'm going to let you go first. Where are you with open concept and sort of the future of it as you can see with design?
Okay, so it's really funny. I had already moved towards this almost designation of spaces before COVID myself. I felt like the open concept is great, and I think it does have this, you know, attraction of a larger space, and we can communicate with each other within that space. But also now, if you're in a smaller home specifically, you're literally hearing your partner or your kid's conversation in the next space over, and there's nothing between you. So I predict, yes, that there will be a more a special designation for certain spaces. I think that formal dining room, I really think that it's going to come back. I do. I think that there's going to be a reason that we want to sit down at the table and talk about the day versus just having a quick meal on the sofa. Because in the past, I think we were running around, we're all doing our things, and your home was almost like a afterthought in a way, because you're just using it at night, right? You're just using it after you come home from work, or, you know, sometimes on the weekends, if you don't have a big social calendar, maybe you're home. But I think we're in it now, and I think that this special space for you, and it could just be as simple as a chair in the corner with a comfy chair with an ottoman that you can curl up and read a book, but, you know, with a folding screen in front of it if you're in an apartment type situation where you can't renovate. But I do feel that the designation of spaces will increase, and I don't even necessarily have to have an open concept kitchen family room anymore necessarily. If the home is smaller, if the living room and the family room are all in one, I'm almost okay with those spaces being different, because they're going to function differently. You go into a home now with a client for a consultation, for instance, and one child is at the dining table, one child's in the kitchen, and the other one's in the family office working, or the sofa, and like they're all in different spaces because they have to be. One's, you know, the subjects are different, you know, and some of these kids were online for 7, 8 hours a day, full on schedule of school, and they had to have a space for it. So for them to have a space is really important, and for the mom and dad to have a space is important. And I think home offices are just going to go, like, it's going to be the thing going forward. And we are getting more and more requests for home offices, really pretty home offices with a good Zoom background. That's also something that we're getting people asking about. And, you know, one client, for instance, she wants a view from her home office. She wants a view out the window, and we're literally moving the walls and the doors around where we have 2 big barn doors that open up and allows her to see the trees out her windows in her living room, from her office, because that's where she's spending most of her day. And of course, we're giving her a really pretty Zoom background too, but yeah, of course. So I do think that, yeah, all those little spaces are going to be more and more important. And it's up to us to figure out creatively, if the space is small, how do we do it? If it's a big open house, then it's so much easier to add a wall. But to me, that's where the fun and creativeness comes in, when we can really come up with unique solutions for everyone.
That's so neat. And who knew that Zoom was going to be a design consideration?
I'm calling those the Zoom wall. I have had several requests for a great backdrop. So that's it. We're creating Zoom walls now.
And it's funny because we design a lot of restaurants, and I always have that Instagrammable moment wall. So now it's all about the Zoom wall. So it's like becoming a thing.
Totally.
I gotta get one of those.
The background's great.
We know people, Kimberly. We can help you.
I noticed the fireplace. I love the backgrounds.
That's so great. Lauren, what are your thoughts on this? And do you see this sort of like the future of open concept changing? And if so, then how will that impact what you specify for surfaces?
Absolutely. So I second everything John just said. You know, we're all struggling with places to work, whether it's, you know, husband, wife both need an office with closed doors. I mean, so many requests right now for a functional home office space, especially for dual working families. And that's a space that really does need to pack as much function in one area as possible. So I do definitely think we're going to start to see some of that come back into play, where we need walls, we need doors, we need the ability to be able to have some privacy, and not just from a work or school standpoint, but that entertaining value, but for our own families to be able to say, okay, we've been home now for a couple of weeks, you're not going out on the weekends as much, you want to have whether it's a pool, a getaway, a game room, places to be able to hang out and spend some time like you're going to a destination in your own home. So that's really important to start thinking about how you can create some of those spaces that are important to your family. And I do think, whether that's playrooms for kids, basements, so we get that sort of cool hangout, and you know your people who are coming over, you know, your close friends and family that you guys are hosting and entertaining, creating fun spaces like that, so you're not going out, you're not at restaurants, you're not taking vacations, but you find that luxury moment in your own home, I think is really important. For kids, creating some spaces where it's a homework area, a craft area, that has just been everybody's kitchen island. I mean, our kitchen islands are working double, triple overtime at this point. And so, yes, if that's your choice as a space, definitely looking at the surface options there is really, really important. A craft table that can have a top that just gets beat up, putting that piece of glass, you can put cute kids' photos or art underneath the glass to really make it look and feel fun. That's going to be far more durable than using, again, a wood top surface. We're also using, when we create a mudroom drop zone space, you know, there's always an opportunity for a locker with a shoe bin. Well, we like to put a quartz surface there instead of a painted wood top, because that's going to hold up better over time, but also now is completely wipeable and cleanable. So that's an area where I see a good opportunity for an innovative surface there instead of just a painted wood top.
That's very cool. And you just gave me flashbacks of a Sharpie incident in my kitchen services a couple years ago. Fun tip, toothpaste takes most of it out.
You've all been there.
That was a day and a half right there. Lastly, Vanessa, what are your thoughts on the future of the open concept? And do you see this changing your approach to surfaces?
So I love open concepts. It's always been my thing, just because for me, I love entertaining. So I love this filling of the rooms and that cohesive flow. But yeah, our requests have been private offices, a breakout room, an area for family to do homework / office, you know, they split their time accordingly. So I have been getting a lot of I need an office, I need a quiet space. And that's, you know, segregated by walls and doors. So we have seen a lot of that. And as far as surfaces, I mean, even for desktops, like Lauren was saying, with the glass surfaces, with the pictures, I think that's super personable. I think that's something that's very creative and unique for a designer to even come up with a montage or a collage that can essentially be a wallpaper, and then you slip that into the bottom of the table and you can see through that, which is really nice. But yeah, I see a lot of offices coming into play. I see a lot of private spaces that people maybe want in a basement or in an upstairs room that's sort of away from the action or the heart of the house.
That's very cool. And I think that that ties everything up really nicely. We've touched on a lot of really important things here. We've touched on customization. We've touched on our expectations for how surfaces are going to perform. We've talked about how people and germs flow throughout their spaces. And I think, you know, you've all brought your unique perspectives to this conversation. John, do you have any parting thoughts, anything that you want to leave our audience with today?
Well, I mean, to piggyback on what she just said, Vanessa was talking about, I think a way to make these designated spaces still feel cohesive is to continue the flooring through all these spaces, right? So you're making your house still feel like one unit, but you're still having those individual spaces. I think, you know, I think it is going to change based on where we are in the world right now with health and everything. But I also think that, as Vanessa says, we are a forgetful society, and I do think that at the end of the day, some people will end up, unfortunately, if without our guidance, choosing beauty over practicality, where they don't realize that they can have both. So I would just want them to remember, you can have beauty, you can have durability and practicality, but you may not always see the path to get there. And I think that's where it's so helpful to talk to a professional like us and like other professional tradespeople in the industry to really know how you can achieve the best of both worlds.
And if I could jump on to what John was saying, also a great subdivision for spaces can be these stackable walls and barn door style. So it still has that cohesive
pocket
flow.
Door. I love a pocket door too.
And I think you can make it look like it could still be a double door so that you still have that flow and that open space. But then if you need the privacy, it's quickly, you know, you close 2 panel doors at 60 inches wide. It's a pretty substantial area that you can quickly close and make that an office.
Absolutely, definitely. And I mean, who doesn't love a well-situated pocket door?
Love a
pocket door behind.
Yeah. Lauren, do you have any parting thoughts for the audience today?
You know, I think creating good habits, I think making good personal choices, really questioning how you live in your home. Yes, we need it all to look great and be beautiful and make us happy aesthetically, but really asking the function questions first and going from there is a great way to create a successful space for now and then in the future as well.
Well, wonderful advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, John. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Amazing insights all around. It's an important conversation, and it's one that I think will continue to evolve over the coming months and years. And to the team at Andrew Pearson Glass and Charleston Forge, thank you so much for bringing us together and supporting this forum for discussion. We're proud to be partnered with 2 companies who are working so hard to bring designers' true visions to life. And I think we all learned a little bit about the potential of glass surfaces, potentially. Stay healthy and strong out there, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.